Hi, hello everyone. I'm Diane Brown from RxART. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Big thanks to Phaidon for hosting this event and to Simon and Nikki Haas for letting us see their new studio, sharing their practice and their do-it-yourself project that they created with Open Studio, the book that Sharon Hurowitz and Amanda Benchley created. Sharon and Amanda, your book is amazing. It's fun, it's smart, it's cool. Congratulations. Thank you for letting us be part of it tonight. And I think also I wanted to give a little plug for RxART. Simon and Nikki are creating a project for us, our first sculpture project at Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C., Children's National, and we'll see a little bit of that tonight. So thank you all, and I'm looking forward to this.
Hi, Diane.
Hi.
And there's Amanda. Thank you so much. Amanda and I want to really thank you as our host tonight. We are really honored to be a part of this conversation. We love what RxART does, in particular in this time, working with children and with hospitals and healthcare and mental wellness is just really fundamentally important, something Amanda and I just felt like we had to jump on immediately and felt that there was so much synergy with our book. So we want to thank you for being our partner. You are so formidable. We also, of course, want to thank the Haas Brothers, who you can see Nikki and Simon right over in their work in progress studio. And we're going to start to talk about that in a minute because it's really intriguing to see what's behind them and what's possible and what's coming for them now. And we also want to thank the publisher of our book, in particular, Siobhan Bent, who is producing this event for us tonight and really is someone that we lean on all the time. Our book just came out. It's called Open Studio, Do-It-Yourself Art Projects with Contemporary Artists. Amanda Benchley and I went into 17 artist studios. We had a big ask. We asked artists if they would make an art project for us to share with viewers. And we went in their studios to record that. And the real takeaway for us was this aspect of creativity. And we think that certainly now there's just a real focus and hunger for talking about that. And while I think tonight we're going to talk about a lot of things and we're really open to anything and certainly are going to take questions later, that I think the thread for the evening, and in particular really for the Haas Brothers, if there's one thing that you could say about their work that everyone would attest to is that there is an abundance. They abound with creativity in every platform and everywhere that they touch. So anyway, thank you so much. So I'm going to dive in. I think Amanda and I are going to like ping pong back and forth and ask you different questions. But I'm just going to dive in about Open Studio because, for us, a lot of the artists in the book were artists that we knew well. So it was an easy phone call to sort of wrangle them in. For you, both Amanda and I unequivocally wanted you in the book, felt like you were like, the poster child for our book, but we didn't know you personally. So we were like with bated breath hoping, and are so grateful that you participated, but we were curious about not only what it might have been appealing about being a part of this book, but also about your project in general, because we gave you guys carte blanche to share what you wanted to share. And for you both in particular, it really could have gone in 7 to 8 different directions. You have so many different practices that happen at the same time, and we want to talk about that later. But we were curious in particular why you chose to share a beaded project.
Can we also just go to the slide to show Simon and Nikki with their project? So that's a finished version of a little beaded pot that they have come up with the formula to make and that they shared with us in the book. So I just wanted everyone to see it before we got into to discussing and hearing all the magic behind it. Looks like there are drawings for it behind it too.
Yeah, so I think, we were just excited about the idea of sharing a process in general, which is the book sounded amazing to us and we were thrilled to get to be a part of it. And I think that this piece is a good jumping off point for one of our processes that is how we built a lot of different things in the studio. And really, I think as a practice, the point of this piece is to get somebody to think about how a material can be programmed, and you can make emergent shapes. So this is which is like a lofty concept, or like a difficult sort of concept, I think, to wrap your head around. But if you practice this thing, I think it can get you thinking about materials in a different way.
I think beyond that too, like if you think about the point of making artwork, and really the meat of it for us, a lot of it has to do with empathy. It's empathy coming from us towards the people that we're working with, back and forth, that we can understand each other, but also like the person looking at the work that we might create with a community like Lost Hills. I know there's a photo of them up a second ago, that Simon created this. That's the woman from Lost Hills. Yeah. Simon created this process so that these women who are in a community where there's very little work, he created a process so that they could make a living and they could still do all the other things that they want to do with their lives, like go to school or be parents, or any number of other things that they might want to do. So Simon created this process in order to give them work, and then we take what they create and assemble it into much larger pieces of artwork. We're lucky that we've got Marianne Boesky in New York to show our artwork, and we debuted really the first collection of the work based in this process at Boesky. And what you see if you do this art project, we were talking about it before, it's one of the most difficult projects in the book, right? Yeah. And it's
most challenging in terms of, yes, it's like a really hard crossword puzzle. It's like the last one in the week. Yeah.
I know, and I didn't realize it was, it was actually made, this process is designed to be taught in person, and so it was challenging to write it down. I get why it's so hard.
So if you sit there and you do this project, you did something that one of these women have done 1,000 times over, and helped us make our artwork. So it's like you get to be, in a sense, a part of the process. That's why it was important for us to put it into the book. It wasn't just sort of like, oh, here's an art project. It was like, well, this is actually what we do to make our artwork, and we do it with a lot of people all over the world. And so it just felt like a moment that we could create empathy for somebody that maybe is very different from us or has a very different life. But we can all sit down and bead a little object, using Simon's system. And I think that was kind of the point of it.
And actually, so the one you have there.
Yeah, which I was about to mention, because what I was going to say is that what you created is just basically the system for making objects of all sorts of different shapes, including my own freak.
Yeah, so the body of your little piece is the exact same thing that's in the book. It's really just about being a jumping off point for any kind of a form, and we used the same body on all three of the same character, and we actually use that shape all the time. So if you learn it, you can go and look at our beadwork now, and occasionally I have all sorts of things, but you can look into it and maybe read a little bit.
Well, let's see some of the bigger ones that were at Marianne's, so that when you scaled up, right? How big are these?
So the one on the right is probably 4 feet tall.
Yeah, I think so.
Ish. And they went up to 12 or 14 feet. Pretty big. We created whole aloe trees, and so the tops of these are beaded based on Simon's system, but also the leaves have been woven out of parachute cable. And then again, same idea. Somebody can sit from home and make these objects based on Simon's system, and he can deliver a program that they can then execute. So you could be going to school and sit at the lunch in the cafeteria in between class or something, and make one of these, and make some money and good money.
Okay. And also I'm looking at mine right now, and it looks like the antennae are the same shape and structure as this base too, but then scaled down. So it really is flexible.
Yeah, exactly. In that sort of acorn shape, there's 4 active crisscrossy things happening, and in the eye stalks, there's only 1. So that's the difference. And if you only put 1 in, it's a much longer thing. It doesn't make a dome. And the leaves on this yellow plant are the same as that eye stalk, just the one, except it's flat. It's not in a circle. So it's kind of a cool system. It would take me forever to really explain the whole way it works.
But
But-
oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to switch to from the cool system to how you make it more accessible to people by the way you name your projects, and the name that you gave our little acorn shape was, and you just rattled it off the top of the head because you guys name the pieces you do all day long, and you named it Beta Kahlo. So I want you to tell everyone who's here today about the way you name your pieces, since obviously Beta Kahlo is a nod to Frida Kahlo and the beating that was done.
It just goes back to empathy again. Like if you can hook somebody, you know, everyone that's reading an art book probably knows who Frida Kahlo is. And it's just like a way that you can create a common understanding. Like, hey, we're talking about Frida Kahlo. I like Frida Kahlo, so do you. It's just like a little blurb to make them go, oh, this is funny and cool. Like I can get into this. And then it becomes very heady and difficult, right? You start with this sort of like pop moment, something that has to do with like a common knowledge or like a common like. And then you know, if you get somebody on your side with a joke or talking about something you have in common, then you can start to talk about much deeper things. So, I mean, it's just like, it's a good little microcosm of you know, we name all our artwork, or they're all dumb puns based on, you know, people we admire, or even sometimes just pop culture icons. And the whole point is you could start a conversation with your name. And if you start that conversation, and if it starts off light and easy, then you can break down into, I mean, so like, even if you just look at these aloes, for instance, they're very bright, they're very poppy, they're easy to look at. You could have it in your house, you could have it somewhere, and it's like, I don't know, you don't think much of it. It's just kind of a plant. But if you really want to go there, I mean, you could start to talk about the social injustice, or the way that people are paid, or migration, you know, like immigration. You can talk about the rights of women. You could talk about, you know, skin color. You could talk about a million different things that are very heavy, but at least you just have a start point. I mean, if you go to a party and you meet somebody for the first time, hopefully your interaction is usually going to be light and easy and funny, and you just make some jokes, kind of get to know each other. And I guess AIM is the gateway to that. That's the way you can kind of be like, Beta Kahlo, that's funny, it's beads, and it's an art person that we all know and enjoy. And then it's like, wait, but really, you're gonna have to sit there and figure out how to bead this fucking thing, because it's really hard.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, and then the ultimate project, you know, the ultimate goal is to be like, this is something a lot of people are doing, to make an art piece that we all made together, and now you understand what it feels like to make art, which is, you know, that's the whole point, which is, you know, a beautiful thing, I think.
Well, it also is part of the vibe of your studio. Like, you guys are in this new studio now in LA, and when Sharon and I went out, we went to the old studio, which was, I mean, I can't believe that you can improve on that, but it sounds like you're going to. But it was, you know, there was a giant kiln in one corner, and someone was stapling fur on furniture in another corner, but everyone was so happy. And you guys all have a secret language, and you have funny terms that you've come up with. So I didn't know if I hope you're going to continue that in the new studio, but if you can share that with everyone.
Yeah, we definitely will. And I mean, we're just, we're lucky to be doing what we're doing. And I think we all know that. And so we're happy when we come to work, and our art is, it's really fun. There's a lot of serious art. Ours gets serious too, but I think we both respond to fun art. Keith Haring is somebody that we both really love, and some of his work was hilarious, and that's a really good entry point for anything. So I feel like, you know, our art and our studio culture are very similar, where it's serious craft and always working, but just always having a really good time and laughing about stuff. Those names, we will run through puns. Everyone's pretty practiced at it at this point, and whichever one makes people laugh the most in the studio is the one that gets it. And I think Beta Kahlo, Frida Kahlo has nothing to do with this project, which is why it's so funny, except that you can say bead.
Well, it sounds like you always want a sense of community and dialogue. I mean, there's a sense of collaboration. I mean, the fact that there's the two of you, your brothers, and I know Amanda and I are always sort of very curious because Amanda and I are working together, although unrelated, about this division of labor, not only with the two of you, but also, you know, because you did grow up together, your childhood was together, and I know we're both also curious about your childhood and where that sort of spark of creativity came from, but also how you brought it to art and how you're able to work together and with such a large community in your gallery, in your studio, and also outside of your. So you really have built many different kinds of communities, and I was curious how important that is.
It's really important. I mean, we're naturally, we're twins, and so we kind of are just automatically collaborating. If we make anything, we're collaborating. And I think we have an advantage of knowing each other really well, and like I know that when Nikki has an idea, it's going to be good, and I'll go with it, and I might have something to add, but like I think we both know to support the other's ideas, and each of us can reframe the other one's ideas in ways where we both come up with stuff we never thought of. So I think we understand the value of collaborating, and that natural relationship that we have made it really easy for us to transfer that into every other collaborative relationship that we have, because we see just how much like reframing your own point of view leads to new ideas.
You know, Simon and I are really different from each other, but we have so much in common that I think that we'll have very different opinions about something aesthetically, and that there's magic in the discourse, because if we can please, you know, both of us with an idea, it's going to be better than it's just one of us like going like, this is great, you know? So it's like there's a constant conversation, and then that just applies to all the communities we work with. And to be honest, like if you can find some sort of common thread between the two of you, the more different you are, the more you're both going to learn, and the better the idea is going to be. Because if you can make somebody feel good about working on a project, and you have almost nothing in common, maybe outside of the fact that you're makers, which is definitely the case with both of these communities. We don't have a whole lot in common outside of our like want to make art and our dedication to craft. You end up with something really special, because you have to please, you know, both sides of the collaboration. So what you end up creating is something that's much more palatable to many more people. And then if you get down into the nitty gritty of like, you know, the social aspect, or like our want or need to make art, or like our motivation to make it, that might start to isolate some people. But I think oftentimes, at least the aesthetic or the intention behind the artwork is pretty open, and it's because there's such opposite sides working on the same project, Simon and I included. We're super different from each other, and that's the magic, that if we can find a message that we both want to say, it's going to be more palatable to more types of people, and be more inclusive, and create more empathy towards the what we're trying to do. You know?
It might be tied because you're because you're related, that really special connection that you want to share, and you understand it, the value of someone outside of yourself.
Absolutely. And it's like, you know,
oh, sorry.
Oh, no,
well, I was going to say, it's like when you travel somewhere and you learn a new language, every time you do that, you know, like if I wind up in Venice, I'm going to see a lot of things and experience things that make me reconsider like everything about what's happening in my world. Maybe that's because I'm so visual, and Venice is its own magical spot, but like I think reframing your perspective is the most important thing you can do. So we do that with each other constantly without having to travel. But then, like, you know, we work with Lost Hills, for example, and there's a language barrier and just a culture that we need to learn, and it's in a new place, and all kinds of logistical things, and just that forces you to be really creative with how you problem solve.
Well, so Nikki sort of mentioned the limit of Lost Hills, but can you tell us about where you learned how to bead, and all of those communities and collectives that
yeah, well,
when you
learned
talk about
to
the community, these are some of the people you're talking about more specifically.
We went to Cape Town kind of on a fluke trip to Cape Town, and met a group of women that are bead artists, and we asked if they would work with us because their work was really similar to ours in terms of how much time went into it and how much fun it was.
And you were not doing any beading before that. You were just
none.
Sure.
Exactly. And so we started.
We weren't even using color, to be honest. Like we were just we were experimenting like, you know, fur tone, like, you know, tan, black, gold. And that was kind of like our palette. We just come off of a big project with Versace and then like done our first solo show in New York, like at a design gallery with art company, and like it was I don't know, we were young, we were 26, 25. I think we were still figuring out who we were, so it was like a super formative moment for us. Anyway, sorry. So, you know.
No, we started a project with them, and then they were actually making all of the things, and I really wanted to learn their process. So they would teach me beadwork, and I'm a really analytical person, and I'm process obsessed, and I have to like have a system for how stuff is made. Nikki's not that way, and our work is very emotive, I think, because of Nikki's input, and it's more process intensive because of my input. So when they taught me how to bead, I was like, okay, I have to figure out a system for beadwork. I can't just be like beading,
because they were doing it without the Simon mathematical formula.
Oh yeah, they don't need that at all. And when I tried to introduce it later, they were not interested. It's cool. It was like they're like, no, we know how to do this already. But so anyway, flash forward many years, we met Linda Resnick, who's now a close friend of ours, but she told us about how in Central California there's kind of a jobs vacuum for women in farming communities. And so she brought us to Lost Hills and said, why don't you do what you did in Cape Town, but do it locally?
I mean, you had already set up the women in South Africa to do beadwork for you all. Right?
They were already working on it, and it's like they're pretty different projects. It's funny because it starts with that same idea: underprivileged people in a place that don't really have much opportunity. I mean, that's really the magic of it. That just like pretty simple and straightforward. But then when you get into the nitty gritty of it, like South Africa, they were already making their own artwork, and I think for us, it was kind of just looking at what they were doing and going, "Wow, this is crazy! You can buy." I mean, I wish I had one with me, you know, but something like this size, you know, it's like it was like a beaded thing, and it was $40, right? You sort of start asking the economy, how long does it take someone to make this? You know, because they're like giving you the sales pitch or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But you've changed all these women's lives, right? I mean,
yeah, I hope so.
I mean, we're working on it. I think the bigger thing is like we're hoping that, you know, it's kind of a hard story to tell, to be honest. It's like a lot of, you know, it's a lot. I'm even struggling to tell like just like how it happened, and it's like, you know, you just sort of start to go, wow, this item this big is $40. It took someone 2.5 weeks to make. I mean, you do the math, right? And they don't get the $40; they get 20. They get half.
Right.
That's how it works. So it's just like
we sort of restructured the payment system so that it was a lot more fair for how much work it is, and then we were lucky enough to learn from Cape Town what worked and what didn't, because it is hard to like establish a brand new working relationship with anybody, and that was like as different as it could be. So we worked that out, and then we came to Lost Hills, and we already understood some things about it, and the women in Lost Hills did not come to the project knowing how to bead. So they were receptive to doing my like math system.
they were, okay, so you like make a sketch and then you give them your formula. It's like these intricate formulas. So
here's it doesn't even start as a sketch for them. They look like this.
Oh.
It's like crazy. Here, I'll show you let me see if I can show you. Do you see that formula?
Yeah, you have them on your own studio wall. You had in the room.
These are from my wall, and it's written down like that. And I taught them how to do this, and then we sit around and make these things, and we'll make the little dome shape. We make the eye stalk and the little ball on top, and then we assemble them together, and it's like, oh yeah, that's what that is. So, but
they learn it like this.
It's really cool.
In South Africa, Lost Hills, same thing. It's like you kind of come in and you're like, we're gonna make music together. I know you don't know how to play guitar, but this is how. Let's do it. I'm gonna play drums. You do that. You know, it's like that's just what it is. It's like a workshop. You know, like we know our craft well.
Right.
We know people that are really eager. And to be honest, you know, like we work with a lot of art fabricators, like UAP or Walla Walla or any of those guys, whatever. You can go down the list of, and it's like they're fantastic. They're super capable. But you go to a community that I know you could let them know that they have the opportunity to put something in a museum, which Lost Hills and South Africa did with us. And it's like I just think that concept is so foreign to them. Whereas, like, you know, if you came to us and said you're going to be in a museum, I mean, of course, we'd be super excited, but it would just be sort of like, yeah, cool, all right, let's do it, or we're going to get into it. For them, it's like, oh my God, what? Like, it's just something that they never ever considered. So that alone is already so exciting. It's like majorly invigorating to sit down with a group of people and be like, this is how you do it. And it's like, you know, you kind of just start to realize that no one ever told them that was a possibility. They also come from a place where it's just like, I don't know, like our parents, we grew up in this like super creative environment. Everything was possible. We were super well supported. You know, we're white men. We had everything in front of us that we could possibly need. So I think like that plays a large part in how we ended up where we ended up. And so to go into a community and just not even really have to make any commitment, but just be like, we can make something that goes in a museum and be met with the excitement and like there's just something about pushing those two worlds together and trying to diffuse that opportunity that we've been so lucky to have all of our lives and sort of push it into a community that I mean, that it just doesn't even feel like a possibility to them. It's like, to be honest, it's completely invigorating, I think, for everybody involved.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, now everyone who has Open Studio is part of that larger community too. So
I was at the Cooper Hewitt beading project years ago, and if I'm not mistaken, one of the women was there because I think you have someone there. And I'm curious, is there an aesthetic hand that you see, or like, is there a different kind of beadwork that you're seeing in South Africa than you're seeing in California? And is it very individualized? Like, is it so artisanal that you know this is this person?
So I can tell who made something in South Africa, and we can tell who made something in Lost Hills. The thing about Lost Hills is that it's prescribed, so they're making the same object over and over again. But you still see somebody's tenacity, right? Like what are they more interested in? You know, like Dulce has like a tighter weave, right?
Yeah,
she,
I
like,
mean,
pulls
you can
her thread a lot tighter. Or
some shapes will bend one way or the other based on how tightly you pull it or the way you hold it, which is kind of cool. So I can see it there, though. That's in Cape Town, each person has their own system because each one of them is an artist, and they are or they were doing beadwork from before.
Like Mongamzo is like, we'll use brighter colors, for instance, or like Zisiwe will do way more complicated patterns, but like more toned down color palette, and I mean, which is like super cool.
They're also interpreting our drawing, so it's like a very collaborative thing, and there's a lot of room for changing our designs, which is kind of cool. Lost Hills, on the other hand, because I'm kind of controlling it, I'm a control freak with the process. There's not a whole lot of like with the Open Studio project, you kind of have to follow my system.
And I know when you look at Open Studio, you see your studio, and if anyone who's looking tonight, they're like, wait, there's a disconnect with the studio that's behind you now, which is your new studio. We wanted to sort of talk to you more because we remember what we saw in your last studio, which again was multifunctional. You know, there was a kiln, there was a woodwork area, there was a ceramic painting area, there was the beading area. And maybe you can tell us what you're planning for in this new space, and more importantly, you know, what your studio, how important your studio is in your practice during COVID, or you know, or what you find, you know, where you make your work and how that plays a part of it.
Yeah, our studio is so important to us, and especially right now, it's the only place that we go besides home. So this is like our place to escape to, and the studio you guys came to was in West Adams, which is more South LA, and now we're in North Hollywood, which is the only point of reference for anyone will be Clueless.
Oh.
The movie
Circus Liquor.
Circus Liquor. Mm-hmm. We're right next to that store, so it's.
Yeah.
It's my favorite movie.
It's so good.
Everywhere in LA is 15 minutes.
And this literally is actually only 15 minutes from each of our houses.
Right.
So
Perfect.
But so this is the first time, our last studio we rented. This one we own. This one's a lot bigger. I mean, the idea is to make it very like we can host people when they come to Los Angeles. We'll have areas where we can keep our work on display. We'll still have just as many crazy workstations making wood and ceramic and bronze and beading and R&D and drawing and painting and all that stuff. We're still going to keep all of that, but also have clean spaces and areas where you can like chill out and just decompress and be here. Or if somebody comes to work with us, they really have a spot to sit and be here for weeks if they want.
You have like 20 people who work there, right? I mean,
we did, but COVID has changed that. So our team is a lot smaller, sadly. And we may or may not grow back to that place, but as it is, how many people are here now? 8, right?
8 people.
So right now we have 8.
Mm-hmm. It was 15 before, now it's 8, and it's like it's like, I mean, look, a lot of people are going through this. It's good and bad. There's good to both aspects of that. And the cool thing is, and I'm really proud of, is like a lot of people that got furloughed ended up like jump starting their own careers. Mm-hmm. And then now there's no chance they're coming back because why would they? And that's the thing is we end up with majorly talented people inside of our system. Like we're so lucky that we really try to keep it open, right? So like our studio, we work 4 days a week, and that way 3 days a week, anybody that works here. And by the way, this goes for anybody that's ever worked here. 3 days a week, it's their studio. They can use it. They can make whatever they want to make. Mm-hmm. And it's like careers will start here in our studio, and we're so proud that we can be a part of that. I mean, that's really a big part of it. And then sometimes you get comfortable, mm-hmm. and I think a lot of people that worked here and now that they've started their own thing, they would have never done that. And so it's like in a way they have COVID to thank for that.
We can call them the Haas children to go along with the Haas sisters.
Yeah, I mean they're I'd say they're more like brothers and sisters. The funny thing is, when we started our company, we were in our
26.
Yeah, 26. So it's like the people we were hiring were 22, 23. Mm-hmm. And it's been the same people most of the time since then. So it's like, it's been an 8-9 year ride for all of us together. And, it's like, it's sad and beautiful at the same time. It's really cool to watch people go off and do their own thing and just see how innovative people can be. So, we're really proud of our system. We're proud of our family. We're proud of everybody that's come through here because they're all brilliant, and it's like I think that's kind of, to come back to the studio question, that's the place we want to always keep it, is a place where people feel comfortable to always be a part of it. Once you start working with us, that's a life decision, like it's not like you can't ever leave. It's just like, this is always going to be part of your reality, I think. I hope that, we've had interns that have worked here that have cycled through, or like we all mark each other. That's what's so beautiful about it. And so this is like, I think it's just going to be like our old studio in that way, just more so, and hopefully more impactful because there's more space, more ability, and just like more inspiration, because there's just going to be more things going on inside.
You're going to be flooded with applications after this call tonight. We're all ready to go there. Can you talk a little bit more about your childhood, because you were saying that the sky was the limit, that you were really embraced as kids, and I think, Amanda, originally our book, we had envisioned it for children, and obviously we're all in love with RxART, and you're doing a big project for them, and we're sort of another thread of our book has always been this idea of creativity and what happens as you get older, and why is that creativity, why aren't we all still a little bit of an artist? But what was it? Was it one thing in terms of inspiring the two of you? Like, did you know you wanted to be an artist? Was it always just something you were doing, or or was there an artist in your life, like in your family, a musician that was like opera singer that was paving that way?
Yeah, I mean, our family is very much kind of a family of artists. So our mom was a screenwriter, and before that, an opera singer, and our dad owned a furniture company and was a sculptor. And he mostly did stone carving, and our older brother's an actor. So between the three of them, it was basically just bouncing between different forms of self-expression. And we used to spend a lot of time in our dad's painting studio. Oh, he was a painter too. So we spent a lot of time in his painting studio. And at least for me, I mean, Nikki grew up carving stone with him, and I would spend a lot of most of my free time was in his studio drawing and like painting with him or reading his art books. So that was kind of all I saw for myself.
Yeah, I was a big ice hockey player, and then I really viewed the work that I learned from my dad as construction, not really as like expressive work. So that was really my path, was construction, and I don't know what else. Like I just was like, I'm gonna do construction, and then construction turned into this. And then Simon, Simon's so smart about his philosophy behind making work, and really analyzes everything moving forward, and can see the potential inside of an object beyond it just being an object. So I think that like I really wanted to play ice hockey and do that professionally. That didn't really work out, so I was just like, I'm gonna do construction, and then it ended up becoming this. I think in a way I resisted it. But then, I mean, once it started happening, it's like, how lucky are we that we get to have this job? I mean, like, really, the cool thing about being an artist is that your job description is kind of like, you can do whatever you want, which is kind of cool. It's a lot of work, but it's like, we make sculpture, we make furniture, we make cartoons, we record music, we do all kinds of stuff, and it's like, that's all allowed, inside of an artist field.
Yourself that license more than other artists, and you've done it so successfully that you've broken down barriers, and there's no sense of high and low with you, and there's no sense of categorization of things, which is really refreshing, and I think a very important contribution that you've made, that has freed artists up even more when they see or hear that you've just done it. You don't have this preconceived label or thinking of that, you've got to fit in this mold. And
well, that's nice to hear.
A lot of it has to do with permission. You know what I'm saying? We were always given permission to do. Our parents were very loose with us. They let us do literally anything we wanted to do, and I think we were pretty good kids considering. And I don't know, when you go to somewhere like Lost Hills and you say, hey, this could be in a museum, and just to see like sort of this like excitement, and also on some level some relief, because it's just, they haven't ever been given permission to even express inside of art. Like, I mean, you see someone, you're like, hey, can you sketch this? And they're like embarrassed to do it because they've been sort of keyed up to not feel like that exists inside of them. And I think that was never an issue for us, which is pretty cool. And so to be able to be in the position to give people permission that didn't have it previously, we had permission to do anything we wanted to do. And I think that was a pretty tremendous gift that our parents gave us.
And that also comes back to it being the two of us, because like I went to school for architecture and painting, and I still have kind of weirdly rigid ideas about what's supposed to be what, like when it comes to fine art or design or whatever. But that was taught to me at school. I didn't have that as a kid, and I don't really like that there's a hierarchy with art. And so I think that, like, because Nikki came at art from a different angle, and the two of us wound up working together, it's like, let's focus on, or again, he reframed for me, like, does art actually have to be what I was taught that it is?
And it was reciprocal, because he taught me, hey, that if you express inside of the system, that you can reach philosophy through making, which is something that I remember. Like, I was really uncomfortable with the term artist. Someone would ask me what I do. And it would, I mean, I realize now it was pretty misleading. It'd be like, oh, I work in construction. I probably said that up until like 4 years ago. And it's like someone's like, he works in construction. Why is he at this like Art Basel dinner or whatever? But I mean, that's kind of the thing is like, I would have used to been, someone asked me if I was an artist, I'd be like, what? Like, no, like, I'm not stuck up like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was maybe even like a bit of me that was like that. I don't want to have anything to do with it. But then you realize just how lucky it is that we get to call ourselves artists. I mean, and that anybody can be one too. That's the other thing.
Well, that's our book.
Right, exactly. And I was going to say that before, because I see questions starting to come in, and before we turn to questions, the last thing, which is like sort of a natural segue out of those messages, is sort of what tips would you give to anybody who, old or young, who wants to become an artist and follow their dreams? Like what would you advise?
I mean, the main thing for me is whether it's art or whatever you're doing is not to let your self-judgment get in the way of finishing something or just keeping on trying. There's a way of it's like an old saying, I guess. Don't kill the perfect in service of the good or something like that. I don't know how it goes.
It's like what is it? It's a good.
Perfect is the enemy of the good, I think.
Right, yeah.
So a lot of people, I think, when they start doing an art project, myself included, they're thinking of like an Ang painting or something as what you're supposed to make, and that's not going to happen unless you're Ang and you've been doing this for 30 years. You know, so it's like, don't put that as your end goal. Just make the goal expressing yourself and enjoying it.
Yeah. And then your goal doesn't have to be physical either. Mm-hmm. Like you can just go, I don't know, I think about the people I admire most, like, you know, Nikki Sanfalo is like maybe one of my favorite artists of all time. Mm-hmm. And I remember looking at it and being like, you could emulate it visually, but really it's, if you want to have kinship with that process, it's more about trying to understand what they were trying to achieve, right?
There's a connection with your work, I think, aesthetically. And
yeah, for sure.
And, Amanda, we've got to get to these questions because I think there's several of them. I'm going to grab one.
Yeah.
So the one that the Douglas asked, which is what I was thinking about too, was with the formulas. For me, it felt like, oh wow, that must limit you. It must restrict you having all of these prescribed things. So his question is, do you feel tension between creativity and order? And my further question with that is, which wins?
Wins. I don't think it's about one winning necessarily. So creativity happens often within a structure, and the more of a boundary or the more of a framework you give yourself, the more creative you have to get in order to express yourself. So like Matisse, for example, when he wasn't able to paint anymore, he was forced to start doing something else like paper cutouts. So that's him getting really creative with more structure. And that to me is actually really cool. I think the creativity survives no matter what. And I also think that you can be creative as a computer programmer or with algorithms. For me, I'm really interested in that everything is kind of generative, including math and including structures like that. I mean, biology, the way everything is built, there's rules that are there, and also like just reality itself. We have gravity, we have time, we have matter. There aren't that many things there. It's actually very rigid, but so much is going on in there. So it's really about how you add these things together, and what you do with them that equals the creativity.
Well, and that stuff's really important, but the rigidity too kind of can lead you to, oh, I don't have to worry about the physical, and I can focus on like what it is to make something art. You know? And that's kind of you know, like whatever, I don't know, like the message you want to put out there, the thing you want to feel while you make it, or like the process that you're engaging in to get better at what you're doing. Or, I mean, those are all the more important. It's like, it's that old cliche that it's like, it's about the journey and not the destination. And the rigidity can give you it can give you the street map, I guess, in a way.
And so, I need that structure. Like for me, it's actually kind of compulsive to organize things. And if I'm given the challenge of organizing data or something, or doing something repetitive, that's helpful for me because my brain is like all over the place all the time. So I need to have that in order to be creative in the first place.
Or if you take something like the design world, it's pretty rigid compared to the art world. Like there's things that are expected. You have to make something function. I mean, it's not that big of a rule, but it's a lot easier to make something where people go, what is that? Like, what is that you're making? Art world is a lot harder to get attention because everything is allowed, So it's kind of like the rigidity is great. I don't know. I'm just repeating what I'm saying.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask the next question, which is from Megan, and it says, what were some of your greatest sources of inspiration stemming from when you were kids, other than Dr. Seuss, which most people
only Dr. Seuss.
Well, you can talk about Dr. Seuss too.
This is, Matt Groening in general, like The Simpsons and Futurama, Ren and Stimpy was. I mean, honestly, like I'm still such a huge cartoon fan, and like I watch all the like movies with my son now, who's 3, and it's like our brother was a huge Beatles fan. He was almost 9 years older than us, so it was we watched Yellow Submarine all the time, which now my son is a huge fan of, which is super cool to like re-experience that with him. So I'd say I lived inside of cartoons, but then also like our family is really inspiring, just like being around our family and seeing what they're capable of. And like, we were always building weird, crazy things together, even when we were really young. And then our dad, always had really cool art books, and our parents were always playing cool music. And I mean, I always like Nikki DeSaint was a huge, huge, huge person for me. Yaya Kusama, like huge, huge, huge person for me. I mean, for me, it's David Hockney, which it's always the same answer, which is kind of, but it's true. And the way he, more than anything, it's the way he talks about making art, and also just that he went to places of like using a fax machine to make art.
Those were the best prints he ever. I mean, he's always innovative in his printmaking, but those were really
very
incredible.
It's cool, yeah, and doing stuff that people were like, no, you can't really do that, and even down to that he describes his paintings as pretty, and he in his book described that as like a bad word in the art world, and I thought it's cool that he says it's a pretty picture rather than that's my painting, and so he just kind of showed me that you get to decide how you operate as an artist.
Do we have time for another question? I guess Rebecca asked which challenge, Rebecca. Thank you, Rebecca. Knowing that you've looked at the 16 other artists in our book, you're friends with probably so you have a conceived idea of what this answer is going to be. Which project in our book, it's okay if you haven't looked beyond your own pages, were you do? And if not, if you can't answer that question, I'll even open it up to RxART's coloring book if there was a project in there.
I'd probably say Alex Israel just because he's a buddy, and like it looks like fun. It's pretty open.
Oh my God,
it's kind of like
we had a real, we'll have to share with you another time, but we had so much fun because we piggybacked when we came to LA. We shot you and him a day apart, I guess. And both of them, I mean, you really made, it was a really special trip to have both of you on one time. And his
also different end of the spectrum, I think, the way that we approach artwork, which is like, again, makes it really cool. There's like magic in I mean, you realize, we actually have a lot in common, which I didn't expect when we first met each other, but it's like, that's what's cool about it. Again, you want to do something that's different from your experience, so you learn something.
Right. Okay. So, we're going to take up on the challenge of doing Alex's, and then we're calling Alex after we get off this Zoom.
Yeah, totally.
We're gonna have a real collaboration.
Oh, he could do a video. He could do a video portrait. They could do a video portrait of Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
do his project of him. Okay,
Yeah.
this is our last questions. From Tessa, did having to explain your process of creating one of your pieces in Open Studio, which is Beta Colo, make you reflect on your process or work differently?
It made me think about how I teach that process. Yes, more about how I would teach it, because it's pretty hard to translate actually. And in general, I show the way that this thing is done is I'll show someone, and it actually doesn't take very long to teach it if I'm doing it with them. It's usually like a 3-minute long thing. So yeah, writing it down made me realize just how complicated it is.
So is it a muscle memory thing? Is it just like dance or where it's an easy thing to writing down the choreography?
It's muscle memory, but it's also like I say, I'll explain it by saying, okay, pull on your string and look at what color bead the string is coming out of. If it's a blue bead, pick up a red bead. And that's a pretty simple rule, and that's kind of all I say. And that'll make a shape. But when you write it down the way I wrote it down, it looks really crazy. It looks daunting.
It doesn't. It looks really smart. You look really smart.
I mean, I'm smart with my own things it's my system, so I get to be the expert in my own system.
I'd say one thing about teaching, which we do a lot, is that it's, I feel like I always learn more than the students always, because it's like they sort of, I don't know, they can poke holes in the way you make work, and you can get in a rut and just do your thing. And if you have 10, 15, 20 students, or you have to make something that's open for everybody to learn, it's like you always learn way more about yourself, because it's like you're exposing yourself in a way.
Yeah. Well, you've exposed yourself tonight and shared so much with us. No, I mean, you really have done a lot that and really revealing and inspiring. And I know Amanda and I really want to thank you. We're so grateful you were part of Open Studio. We are going to have you do Alex's project soon. And we want to thank RxART and Phaidon for being our generous hosts tonight, and for the audience for hopefully listening to the two of you and getting to hear all about your practice. So thanks.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see your RX project.
And we can't wait.
When's that going to be ready?
It's going to be
like 8
in
months.
June, July. It's actually, I don't know if you can scroll through to that image, but
it's happening soon.
Yeah, there it is. So it's going to be a big tree with a stone base, all made out of beads like this. Beads everywhere. These beads, branching beads.
Fabulous.
It's going to be great.
The kids are gonna love it. So
Summer 2021.
Oh yeah, summer 2021.
Can you touch it? Are kids? Are you expecting everyone to be able to touch?
So we're yes, no climbing, and hopefully no pulling on the leaves. So that's it's really tall.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Test drive it on with Fox and see what he wants to do.
We've been pulling on these that we've actually we did break one, but we're pulling on them in our studio trying to see if they break. We'll see.
All right, we can't wait. All right.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good night.
Take it easy.